What is a dark secret you know about somebody that you can never tell anyone? My friend's son believes his father and stepfather both had heart attacks and died around the same time. In reality, his real father was molesting him and his stepfather went to his house and shot him in the head and then committed suicide. It was all over the news and I always hope for his sake that he never googles his father's or stepfather's names. To this day, he wants to be a heart surgeon so that no one else he loves will die of heart attacks. I know a girl who is living in Oregon waiting for her stepfather to get out of jail so that they can get married. He's in jail for having a relationship with a minor. This limerick needs editing. One of my friends growing up told me his biological father was in prison. I later googled his father's name and found out he went to prison for producing and distributing child pornography. I'm pretty sure it was made with my friend and his siblings. A friend of mine is the product of rape. He told me this one night when we were pretty drunk. He said his father told him after him and his mom got divorced. Pretty much a FCKU. You aren't my son type thing. Pretty TTY. Whoa. Both fathers are assholes. My father has a secret child. I only know because she contacted me via Facebook. I don't know if my stepmother knows. But I know no one else in my family knows because they cannot keep a secret to save their lives. Are you sure you're not the secret child? Troll your dad. Act like you guys are in a relationship and eventually invite her over for dinner. Awkward. My parents are cheating on each other. They both don't know. My mom accidentally texted me a dirty message that wasn't meant for me. And made me promise not to say anything to me dad. I had to use my dad's phone a couple of weeks later when my phone died. And he got an inappropriate text from someone that wasn't my mom. He made me promise not to tell my mom. I've been keeping this secret for 2.5 years now. It's torturous. Simple. Change both of their respective affairs' contact info in the phones to each other. So basically you'll never have to do chores ever. A friend of my parents was a burglar in his late teens and early 20s and I only know this because he brought me along on one job when he was supposed to be babysitting me. I was 6 at the time. We were driving in his truck and pulled up to a gate at a farm several miles out of town. He tells me to stay put as he stepped out to cut the lock on the gate. This is a friend's house. Don't worry. We drive up to the house. And once again he tells me to stay put. He disappears for a few minutes. He puts a couple of power tools, a small TV and a toolbox in the back of the truck. He has also grabbed a case of pop from inside and only promised to share if I didn't tell anybody about anything that night. And until now, I haven't. He went back to school a few years after that and almost 20 years later is now happily married with children and a mildly successful business. Doesn't matter had soda. 19-year-old guy I know was gang up head in 5th grade by a group of boys in his class. They somehow convinced him that it was cool and he became part of their special club who did all sorts of things on one another for months before he finally broke down and told his camp counselor from the summer. That's so f***ed up. I can never understand how kids can be so cruel. Read this as a 19-year-old got gang up head by 5th graders. My friend's dad and his friends gang up head a girl back in high school. My friend doesn't even know. A friend of mine was molested by his babysitter when he was young. He's never told anyone else. Used to seeing it spelled babysitter. Without the space. Read as baby sister instead. An older male friend of mine. He's 54. I'm 31, and I got falling down drunk together and he confessed to me that his first sexual experience was when he was 15. And he was hitchhiking. He got picked up by a trucker who proceeded to hold him at gunpoint. The trucker then blew my friend. At gunpoint. The thing that my friend agonizes over is that he actually came. I am the only person he has ever told. Somehow. I know a lot of these types of secrets about not only my friends, but also random strangers that I meet. I don't know what it is about me that just makes people want to confess f***ed up things to me. What's even more strange is my and my dad's Secret is that I am the illegitimate daughter of a Catholic priest. So people confess things to my dad all day. It's like we are both paying for his secret by having to hear other people's fked up secrets constantly. FCK. Not trying to be blithe. But your life would make a killer book. I know a guy who is the son of his uncle. His grandparents would not let his 15-year-old mom have an abortion after her older brother upped her. The guy is a little off in the head. But I don't know if it's because he's like hillbilly nobility or not. I also don't know who he thinks his father is. But I know he doesn't know the truth. Hillbilly nobility. Classic. My ex-husband is a child molester. He touched my niece when she was 7-8 years old. And she confided in me around age 11. I did tell her parents, who decided not to press charges because it would be too hard on her. Personally, I think that is a bullshit cop-out response because they just want to sweep it under the rug. I spoke to the police. But as I'm not a guardian or teacher, they can press no charges on my word. I approached him about it and he straight-faced admitted to it. I have emails from him where he admits to and attempts to justify it. I want to scream from every mountaintop here so that everyone can know what monster hides behind that friendly face. But I can't. All I can do is tell my niece I'm sorry I brought him into her life. And that any help she needs, I will move heaven and earth to get it. Really late to this. Basically. TLDR format. Bully. Made my mate's life hell. Saw my mate push him away once. Bully fell 6 floors down past center railing. Bully died. Ruled a suicide. Never told anyone. I know that one of my married teachers used to prostitute herself for extra money and conceived a child from it. I haven't told anyone because it was the real father of the baby who told me, and her poor husband has thought himself the father for almost 4 years now. A friend of mine held a loaded gun to his head 2 weeks ago in his parents' bathroom. He said the last thing he wanted to see was his own death. Edit. We had a long talk. He said it was the wake-up call he needed. And he stopped having thoughts like that. But he still agreed to get help. Get that guy help now. He's crying for it. My friend married his wife about 2 years ago. She's a Thai woman. About 20 years his junior and quite statuesque. By all appearances. They've got a good thing going. Seem happy enough. And have a little boy. Drunk. He told me about how he found her on the internet. Their basic arrangement is that she would fly over and be his wife. And he would send money to her mother back in the boondocks on Thailand every month. Apparently it hasn't been going well. He told me about how he fears she might just up and leave him. He told me he thinks he should hide her passport so she can't run back to Thailand. Yeah. Kinda dampened my liking of the guy. Edit. Message received, guys. Jesus, that's a horror story. That's kind of like what they tell sex slaves so they don't try to escape. A friend of mine tried to kill himself multiple times. But to no avail, until the last attempt. Mutual friend of ours did the job with a bullet. Your friend was murdered with consent? A very good friend of mine was sexually abused by her father. Her parents are still together. But I don't think her mother knows about it. Anytime I see her parents, he still gives off these incredibly weird sexual vibes. It's very unsettling. I know a T.A. who was having a sexual relationship with a girl in one of his classes and was giving her good grades. When she cut it off, he wrote her all sorts of poetry for her that was really bad. I've heard better rhymes from the Bahamenzanuka album Jamaica, and kinda creepy. Roses are red. Violets are blue. Please have sex with me. I'm gay. Found a video on a gay for pay site. It was my younger married brother getting head from a fat guy. Link. She told me she masturbated with a popsicle in 6th grade. She made me promise not to tell anyone. Years later and I haven't told a soul. FCKU. Karma. Edit. Guys. A 6th grader doesn't even know what yeast infection is. Let alone worry about it. Christ, there's a good 50 of you beating a horse that's been dead for 4 years. This kid I went to high school would often FCK his dog. Now little backstory. I was over at his house hanging out with him. At one point he went into his room to change his clothes. About 5 minutes later his parents asked me if I could go get Rowdy and put him outside. So I'm walking to the back of the house to where I hear Rowdy making some noises. So I open the door to the laundry room, where Rowdy slept. And there's this guy pounding down on his dog. In the calmest most blank face I could muster I said, "Your mother wants Rowdy outside. He needs to take a bath." And walked away. Proceeded to get shitty-faced drunk that night hoping I could forget I ever witnessed it. I did not succeed. F-king the dog is messed up. I was the first person she told. And I'm sure the last. A friend of mine and her little sister were arped for years on end by their elder brother. They lived in the outskirts of the city. When their parents finally found out, through intervention of the school counselor, the brother was reported to the police and was deported from the country, never to be seen again. I hope he rots in a ditch somewhere, because those two girls are just too precious to be hurt like that. One of them, the elder sister, doesn't even smile anymore. A family member was involved heavily with the cocaine trade in Miami and profited somehow from a series of bank robberies. The extent of guilt was never determined, so this person served a bare minimum of prison time while annually collecting from a secreted cache of hidden money in Florida. If they knew how much this person did, chances are excellent they'd still be in prison. Perhaps for the rest of their life. My entire family has been lying to one of my cousins about who her daddies. My uncle fell in love with and married a teenage mom, and since they are old school Mexican, he claimed the baby as his to outsiders. They tell my cousin that the reason they don't have pictures of her as a baby and her dad is because their house burned down, and that this is the reason they left Mexico. She has no idea her dad isn't her biological dad, even though literally everyone else in our family knows. She's pretty f-ked up in the head though, so she might suspect something is up. I also have an aunt that's been married for 20 plus years that cheats on her husband like mad. Her husband is the nicest, funniest, and humblest man I've ever met, and the least deserving of this. She's not subtle about it either. Receiving flowers and her lovers showing up at her house. My uncle is either really oblivious or he's the best actor I know. Your uncle might be into it. I know about an experimental incestuous thing that happened to a girl I know with her half-brother when they were both younger. He apparently felt really weird about it, and as he got older it never even came close to happening again. Only 2 of her family members know about it, besides the 2 of them, and none of her friends. And it would be unforgivable if I were to share this information. Oops. I hope this doesn't count. We'll get buried. But my best friend sent a text one Saturday when he was wasted, saying I am sorry I sped to his house to find him with the garage closed and car on. He was looking for a hose. I stopped him and made him stay with me the rest of the night. I know someone who murdered a pedophile in Thailand. The guy was pretty drunk with a boy that couldn't have been over 11 years old. The locals didn't do anything because they were afraid of harming a tourist. My friend punched the guy then repeatedly stomped him in the neck. The guy was left on East Street and no one helped him. My friend took the kid to a temple. This was about 12 years ago. She drowned her dog when she was a kid. Said she didn't know what she was doing, and just held him under the water to see what was happening. He was an old dog and didn't put up much of a fight. She is surprisingly a very nice person now. She tried to kill her father. I tend to attract a lot of girls that have self-harmed. It's weird, some of them I'd never expect. Friend of mine didn't want children and never told her husband. They've been trying to have one for a long time now. What he doesn't know is that she actually got pregnant and aborted the baby. Edit. For those asking. From what she told me, she didn't want kids from the beginning, but he really wanted them. So she told him she'd have one. When she got pregnant she freaked out and decided to end it without telling him. That was about 6 months ago and I had been trying for about 8 months. I don't get to talk to her that much anymore since she changed jobs, ex-co-worker. So I haven't asked her about it. I only met the guy twice. So I guess if someone like me tells him, he won't believe it. What I do know is that they are still together and they don't have kids yet. An ex-friend of mine who I was very close to at the time had an affair with a guy who got her pregnant. This guy was pushing her to abort the baby and basically mentally tormented her to the point where she was physically stressed and had a miscarriage. She sat at home and lost her baby. After that she was never the same. She obviously never told her longtime boyfriend and 5 years later they are still together. I don't know how she deals with it. Not being able to tell the one person you should be able to confide in. I don't know how dark this is but I know it'd eat me up. One day I was staying over at a friend's house. He went out to get some food and I used his computer in the meantime. I only remember finding a clip with a horse being treated by a nurse turning into an orgy by the farm. Didn't ask my friend about it and nobody else knows he's into all of this. He may not even be into it. There were certain parts of my life where you could find some real weird shit on my computer. I wasn't into then, I just liked having weird shit for the sake of having it. My dad's hard drive crashed. He was extremely distraught because he thought he had lost pictures of his granddaughter being born. And my grandmother's last visit before her death. I decided to surprise him for his birthday by doing my best to recover his pictures. But for whatever reason, the recovery program I used couldn't just pull files from my docs. It had to scan the entire drive for a single file type. Cue me having to dig through thousands of pictures of extreme BDSM. I'm not talking about just latex and whips. But punching and bleeding and blood and ugh. Also saw my dad's dick. I came over to her house to study. Was planned ahead but I guess she forgot. I get down to her room. And just as I was about to knock I hear heavy breathing. I peek cause I'm a curious teenager. And I see her masturbating with a hot dog. Then to conclude her odd masturbation session she eats the f-king hot dog. Just gobbles it right up. She doesn't know I know and I plan to keep it that way. Not dark exactly. I was molested by my stepbrother. Repeatedly for 6 months. I haven't told anyone. Ever. God it f-ked me up. Edit. Misread the title. Ad. My friend from high school was pretty f-ked up. When she was 14 she got in an overly serious relationship with a 24-year-old. He proceeded to RP her. Ever since she felt unworthy of love and degraded herself daily. Another not so secret of her. She got fingered daily for a week in class. I couldn't believe my ears. Another. My girlfriend's sister is the product of rape. And her mother told me while she was drunk that sometimes she wished she would have aborted. I was quarantining my brother's computer because it was bogged down with viruses. And partway through one of the spyware scans I found a shitload of trackers that said shit like young girls XXX. And child's play XXX and shit like this. I was deeply disturbed for a few days after that. Haven't told a soul. Yeah, IT guy, here there's viruses going around right now saying you've watched child PRN even though you haven't. So you can probably put your mind at ease. Viruses will name themselves that sort of stuff for the sole purpose of having that sort of name. It doesn't necessarily mean he was looking at pedo PRN. Well, my darkest is basically my whole ex-girlfriend's life. She was molested by her grandfather and if she told she was burned with cigars. I found this out because I asked why she's afraid fire. Her mother and father were meth cookers and I'm guessing users and crackheads and cooked while she was a baby. She was an avid heroin user with her ex-girlfriend. They also smoked that fake weed tea. She also threatened to kill herself a lot and refused help from anyone. Me and a couple of her friends knew about her suicidal tendencies and her cutting problem. And well, that's pretty much my darkest secret and it'll probably kill her that I'm aware of. I'm the only one that knows about most of it.